That help drinking the local water? Oh, I just drink it.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Norwood,
Here.
Siragusa.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts is not in attendance this evening. Commissioner Stallings.
Here.
Commissioner Orr.
Here.
Mayor Pinkinen.
Here. All right, thank you. All right, item 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda.
I got a question on change orders that we always, I noticed in the past there's some big ones to some of the projects we've got going on. Is there a point where we rebid that out if as the contractors get into the job and we find out it's going to cost an extra $100,000 or something? Is there a point where we consider rebidding it out, or do we just automatically let those guys do it, or how does that process work?
I'm going to take a stab at it and then let Morali tell you how we really do it. But normally when we bid unit prices. And unit prices with the law allows us to do change orders to whatever level we think is reasonable. If we don't do a unit price order, we do a lump sum, we're limited by law to 15%. So we couldn't go more than 15% over. But Morali, do you want to?
Yeah, most of the time, like the point repairs and stuff like that, they are unit prices, and typically the work is similar. The location is different. So as long as the contractor is willing to work for the unit prices that's established a year or two, we would go with it.
Okay, so you guys look at it, it's just not like a contractor comes to us and says, we need an extra $100,000 to finish the job. There's some kind of process in there to make sure there's still
That is correct.
value in
Yeah.
the best interest of the city?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
It may be a tool that we can, that benefits us sometimes, well, it does benefit us sometimes too, particularly when prices are going up if we think we got good bids, which is what you were talking about, where we might change order someplace else with the same unit prices. But it can get confusing because when we talk about a change order for the original project, so anytime you have any question, please ask us, because we're happy to tell you now or in study session or the regular meeting or before the meeting or however we want you to understand what you're voting for.
Thanks.
It's a good point. If you had the question, so did a lot of other people, so I'm glad you brought it up. Thanks. Anything else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to study items. Number 3, 3.1, Advanced Development Authority Quarterly Update by Mr. Mike Cooper, also known as 41.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, Councilman. Good to see you again. Give a report, and again, what you have me for is to develop, organize, and implement hopefully successful strategies to protect and enhance Vance Air Force Base through increased mission capability items, quality of life, and all those type of things. So a lot of times that means coordinating, trying to find dollars at the state, federal, and local level. Sometimes it means passing legislation like the airspace legislation bill that we passed a couple of years ago to protect our most important military value asset, which is our airspace. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that we have going on and what we've been doing. A couple of items because the state legislature is very rapidly kind of ending, and there were a couple of bills at the state level that we worked on this time. One is Senate Bill 401. I would kind of call it a quality of life item, and it's one that will totally exempt all of your retirement, your military retirement pay from state tax. So that passed today unanimous. So it only means that the governor needs to sign it. He will sign it. So that'll be taken care of. That's kind of a quality of life because that's a good item. So it kind of helps, I think, them attract more retirees to the state. So that's good. The second one was House Bill 3280, and it dealt with easements and the ability for the state or federal government to hold those easements for a period of time. It also said that, well, only the state or federal government could hold 10% of land in the state, and any easements that were in force, they could only last for 30 years. After that, they were null and void. Well, that may all sound good, except that a lot of the easements that we created around Fort Sill in the 2005 BRAC is really a lot of the reason why the artillery school is there, and because you protect the ranges around Fort Sill for them to be able to do what they do with firing cannons and missiles and everything else. So it would have been terrible for us to go back to the Army. Just kidding. It's only lasts for a period of time, then they'll be gone. So, because they would never made the decisions they made on the new movement of that mission. And you all remember during BRAC, you may not because it wasn't here, but they spent about $800 million to move the artillery school from Fort Bliss, which is kind of hard to spend $800 million in almost any city in Oklahoma. So it was a great project for them. So we were able to kill that bill, so that won't happen. So last week we were able to kill that in the Senate, so it was not heard, so that means that's dead, so that won't go away. The priorities that we're working on, I think we talked about it, and I think Colonel Judy was here a couple of weeks ago, and I think Judge mentioned what our priorities are, but I always like to say them so we all are on the same page. So what we're trying to accomplish is a new ramp out at Woodring Airport, another joint use hangar, and then they call it a TDW workstation, I believe. I call it a radar. That's how I can explain it. So I think roughly, because the numbers have all changed and naturally they went up. So I would say, I know Keston's not here, but if I think you looked at
Keston's in the back.
Yeah.
See, he can
He's
get by
always
with
backing
that.
us up.
He can get by with that. I could never hide. But anyway, I don't know, total probably around 8 to 9 million. 8.5. Okay. What we'll do is we'll go out and I'll look for dollars everywhere. But the first thing that happened was a couple of weeks ago, engineering dollars for that, for all those projects. We're able to get $160,000 was approved for us to spend to do that engineering from that. That came from the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission. We gave that as a priority project to Colonel Judy. He went to the commission, and so we got that. So that's taken care of. The other issue, you know, the $2.5 million that we had accrued to help us with the dorm that was going to help us offset. It was kind of an incentive to help through that, through the pooled financing that Lisa helped us with at the state level. Of course, we weren't able to do that because Congress and DOD wouldn't get away from scoring, and I won't go into all of what that means, but we could not do that. So the $2.5 million's left over. We gave them the new projects that we have that benefit us all, plus help, you know, give them increased mission capabilities advance. So we were able to take the ramp, the hangar, and the radar. And so we'll, I think, get final approval of that next Thursday or whatever, the 27th, whatever day that is. And the guy hiding back there will be there too. So, so anyway, hopefully we get that taken care of. We also have the Defense Community Infrastructure Plan that, working with Scott and his new grant writer over there, will present that and try to get dollars to help finish that overall project. But I know Colonel Johnson could explain this, you know, what that really means to his mission, but if you're flying planes, it really means for us, or at least for me, simple mind, you know, they can fly a lot more planes over there, they can land a lot more planes over there and park them. So for me, that's certainly a benefit and certainly going to help Keston out because he's going to sell a lot of fuel. So we'll continue to work those projects. And there's a lot of different places that will bring money to the table, and of course Keston and his budget will have some role to play in that, but as we want to keep that as low as possible. And again, as I mentioned, the number one priority of that is the ramp, so that'll be done first, joint use hangar, and then radar. So we'll, as the money comes available, we'll do that. The other thing on Milcon, and I've had several discussions with Colonel Johnson. You know, from 94, 95 time frame to now, there's probably been approximately $400 million of military construction projects that we've been able to bring here: ramps, runways, hangars, fuel cells, you know, logistics center, all of those things. Those were done as not regular program budget items. They were called congressional ads or earmarks, and now earmarks are back. We haven't had a regular program budget item since I've been here, which was the 80s. So we've had to work through this. And the way we do it, as Colonel Johnson knows, we have to have a project in the 5-year plan or the FIDEP, because if we don't, we can't get it considered for ad or through that earmark process. Because we tried to do that last year on the dorm, and we couldn't do it because the Air Force didn't have it in the FIDEP, but we tried. what we're going to do between now, and I know there'll be a new commander, a new 3-star down at Randolph, so myself and the mayor and whoever else we choose, we'll go down there and visit with them because because the process has changed the way they do that. And they have a, what's it called, installation?
Management Service Center, IMSC.
At
Wright-Patterson.
Wright-Patterson, and that's kind of the ones that hold the card on, yeah, they give them the requirement, but it's just different now through that process and material command and all that. So we're going to go down there because our delegation wants that because they expect us to bring them what priorities are and how they can help, because that's the deal. We all play our role in how do we help you? Because if we don't have something in there, it's kind of like we don't have a method to help you. So you'll see us back up and work with leadership, advance, and through the leadership there. And I think, and Colonel Johnson knows this new fellow that will be taking over down there. He was here at Vance, Jerry, in the early 90s. So he's a Vance grad, and so he was an instructor pilot here as well. So he's familiar with Enid, so there ain't gonna be anything we're not telling that he doesn't know. And he'll understand, how we can help or not. So we'll deal with that. Airspace and ranges, and of course this easement issue, another thing about that bill we killed at the state level. Some states, we haven't used it yet, but we could possibly ever create conservation easements at the end of the runway if we need be. Or some states create these easements underneath the military low-level training routes because they would create these easements underneath those routes where then there's nothing could negatively develop underneath them. We haven't done that yet either. Texas has done some of that, but we also wanted to be able to have the ability to do that. That's why it was important to kill that bill. On airspace, and I know Colonel Johnson's folks see them because I get the notes every, seems like several times a week of new development of wind turbines that come across to say, hey, here's new development. All I will tell you is most of them, and if there's a problem, Colonel Johnson or his staff, somebody's going to call me, but for the most part, that legislation that we created is doing what we wanted to do is, hey, have the wind industry visit with the Air Force before they go out and buy land to develop wind farms. It's not against wind farms, you just don't want to destroy our most important economic asset, which is Vance Air Force Base. So we're not going to allow that. So with that, I think that's what I got. That's priorities, and we'll keep hustling that until Colonel Johnson tells me to focus on something else.
Could I just add one thing there real quick that's kind of a new twist on the wind turbines? So the energy companies, they've grown a lot over the last 3 years that I've been here. They understand the rule. House Bill 2118 is the voice that we needed inside that process. They're not going to be so worried about Colonel Johnson or Vance Air Force anymore. NORAD, so the North American Air Defense, has a say in all of this as well. And when you look at some of the issues that NORAD has with wind turbines and some of the Homeland Defense mission, Oklahoma's at the top of that list, and specifically our airspace. So I'm the least of their worries when it comes to trying to build some of these things now. So just another variable in this calculus when we look at wind energy development.
Yeah, and the National Weather Service is something we found out too. We never would have thought about it, but the two weather radars that they have in the state, this one and the other one in the Southwest, were built specifically for use for DOD. But at the end of the day, there was some development that was going to take away that ability to use them, or for us to even see weather. So we can't allow that to happen. We don't want a community to be destroyed, and because there was no warning, because they couldn't see through the turbines, nor do we want them not to be able to be utilized by Department of Defense, which we did that. The other thing I know, Colonel, I've had some discussions with the clearinghouse, Department of Defense clearinghouse at the Pentagon, and that issue you raised about the expanded size of the turbine itself.
Yeah, they used to be topped at 499 feet. Now they're approved up to 780 feet, which is, we fly at 500 feet above the ground for a military training route. So creates a physical obstacle for us, but it also raises the weather minimums, which affects our training. So,
yeah, and what they said on that these guys that have these development's already in place, if that in fact happens, they have to go back through the process to get approval again. So it's much like starting all over again with a new, which is what we want. You know, we're not, again, state of Oklahoma is not against that development. It's just, I'm not going to take away their ability to train pilots. So
Good.
that's what I got, unless anybody's got anything else.
So Mike, Senator Inhofe did not start out as, but became a great proponent for the city of Enid and Vance Air Force Base. With him retiring, do you think that's going to slow down any of the projects that you have on the books now over the next 5 years?
It isn't going to change, you know, what we have in the process now. Where it really impacts not just Enid, but it really impacts the state of Oklahoma. You know, forget politics for a minute, but Inhofe, you know, would always tell anybody that, hey, I'm a U.S. Senator for 2 reasons. One, to create and protect our nation's infrastructure. In other words, build infrastructure for commerce. And secondly, defense. I'm supposed to have a strong national defense to, again, protect that ability to have commerce through infrastructure. He was chairman of the Environment Public Works Committee when they did the highway bill. He was chairman of Armed Services for 2 years. He's still ranking member on both of those. So there's no one more powerful than that. So that where you'll see the impact is like, it won't be that your congressional delegation can't do it. It's just different when you're talking to leadership and you're creating a highway bill or defense bill. You know, your issues are kind of at the top as opposed to a person that now, because our senator, whoever it is, there's good choices out there, they will have 0 seniority. And last time you know, Congress is all based on seniority. So it's going to be hard, but the best thing, you know, we need to get somebody elected and they're going to have to get some seniority. So,
Thank you.
Okay. Any others?
anything else?
Okay. No,
Okay.
thanks. Good.
All right.
Good discussion. Appreciate it. Item 3.2, discuss proposed 2022-2023 budget calendar. Hello.
Good evening, everyone. This is the calendar that we have proposed for our budget meetings. We would start with May 3rd, and I would present at the study session. And we tentatively would just move to the following Tuesday for a special budget meeting, and then have it on Thursday, the 12th, which would be where we have our budget hearing, and then a tentative approval for the following Tuesday on the 17th.
Okay.
There's obviously other days in there that we could have if there's problems with that, or if we need extra time. Right now, the schedule, I will be going kind of as an overview on the 3rd and going over general fund. And then Tuesday night would be all of the other funds. And then Thursday night, the 12th, would be when we go over the capital improvement program, when we also have the budget hearing, so.
Okay. Good. Let's see, you're going to distribute the draft budget on this Friday. It's available, is that right?
That's the plan.
That's the plan? Okay.
Right now, we still have a few more items to nail down and finalize, but that still is my goal.
Okay.
So,
And when you distribute the plan, put which days we're going to look at which parts of the
right,
budget?
I will have that out with
Okay.
color. I don't have that for you tonight because
No, that's fine.
I didn't have, you know, we want to make sure that everything is good before I send it out, so.
Yeah. So I realize there's a lot of pages in that budget, but this is probably the single most important thing we do all year long. So you're going to have about a week in between, a little over a week in between the time you get the draft budget and we start our discussion. So make sure you're ready to come and address the items that are going to be talked about on the 3rd. Look at the rest so that we're ready for the other dates as well. So that schedule will come out at the same time as they're distributing the budget.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from anybody? Okay, thank you. Item 3.3, discuss special sales tax oversight committee. Chief?
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to discuss the Special Sales Tax Oversight Committee a little bit. So it was created in 2005 by resolution as an oversight for the public safety sales tax and the street and schools tax. Over the years, a lot of the details have changed concerning how the monies were allocated, including the extension and repurposing of the street and schools tax into the call pipeline tax. In 2019, the ordinance that defines how the money is allocated for the police and fire funds was changed so that now 30% of those funds is allocated to the capital funds of the police and fire department, and the remainder of that goes into each of those operational funds. So by this ordinance now, all the money is tracked by the budgeting process. Over the last several years, the committee has had numerous vacancies, has had difficulty meeting quorums a lot of the time, and it seems to be mostly just a lack of necessity. So the members of the committee just started not attending as much, and the vacancies have been harder to fill. So by that, my recent experience in this last February was to try to call around to the committee members and get a quorum, and that took about 3 hours of my time to find out that we were not going to be able to have a meeting because we couldn't meet a quorum. So talking to Chief Skaggs and city manager and like my executive assistant Cindy, who else put all this stuff together, it came to my attention that we're spending a lot of time and effort to put together these meetings. That one, all the information it's all budgeted money, so it's all accounted for. You guys approve it in the budget, and it's monitored throughout the year. And so maybe the committee is just not as necessary as it used to be. So, in my opinion, maybe we just discontinue that committee.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. However, and I think we're having that across the board. We have people, have struggle getting people to come to these different meetings. I would still like to be addressed twice a year with the same format that we do right now for that committee, and just because it's a quick review. And I was kind of surprised that didn't happen my first 2 years here or whatever. So, just a quick rundown. Send somebody over here that'll just, in a study session, just review that, and that way you can see how that money is being spent, and it'll give you a little extra oversight. Of course, we okay everything in budget sessions and all, but it's hard to keep track of all that. And it's very interesting to see how you use that money that is collected for you. You really do a great job of taking care of the money, and you always have a good fund balance in case something comes up, and that's with both departments. So I would like the rest of the commission to be able to share that information that I was privy to for many years that I was on that committee.
Okay,
That's what I think.
understood.
Give me a little history as to why we had that committee and what has changed.
Well, anybody can jump in here, but with my experience with it, we collect a certain amount of money, and the departments are required to spend a certain amount of money, and then on projects that are proper, and then there's a list of what you can do and what you can't do with certain funds. Isn't that right?
So the capital funds, are for large expenditures, buildings, trucks, cars, large computer systems, over a certain dollar amount.
It's not for
10 years
salary.
of age, right, capital items.
Right, capital items. And then you just, you knew what they were doing, and that board is selected by each commissioner and his ward, or that's the way it was when I was doing it. And so we call somebody and say, will you make these meetings? And you generally meet, twice a year, isn't it?
It's been twice a year, yeah.
Yeah. And yet they have struggles getting everybody there because generally it's done during the daytime. It's not a nighttime thing. And we tried to show interest when I was chairman of it for a few years. I tried to have it like at the fire department or a new station or a new place where people would want to come to it and see the new item that was the new fire truck or the new training center or whatever it was. That helps, but you're not always going to have people that want to put that kind of time into it.
Yeah, I'll jump in and give you a little history. I came to the city in '05. This passed back, like you said, Chief, in about '02. And there may have been, I think the street schools tax may have passed in '01, about the same time frame. So this committee was responsible for overseeing both the quarter-cent sales tax that went to fund arterial streets and schools, and it also, quarter-cent was split an eighth and an eighth with public safety. So it was a half at one point.
Right.
What he's talking about is and it was a 15-year tax, I think. So in 2018, the debt that was taken on to help pay for some improvements for a previous BRAC round with the schools got paid off in 2018. And so that ended effectively that tax. And then we had in 2016, with the vote of the people, they approved the 3/4-cent sales tax and extended this quarter-cent out to 2052, I think, to go with that so that we had a total penny or 1%. So what it left was the quarter-cent public safety tax, which is split an eighth and an eighth with police and fire. And so really, there used to be more to talk about in those meetings. Now it's down to police and fire. And I think a suggestion, there's several things we could do. This is just talking about it tonight, but my thoughts is you guys are the oversight committee. And so just like you said, we can bring, Chief, you can bring the reports to them, and you can hear how much sales tax was actually collected versus what was budgeted and what you actually spent it on. And that would be one suggestion. Call Lake Oversight is overseeing the other sales tax, which is the 3/4 and the quarter. So they actually kind of effectively see that. And so potentially they could be tasked as well if we want to do it that way. But that's kind of the brief history as I know it. And Carol probably has more details because she lived it all. She was here when we did it, so.
I have nothing further.
That's good enough for me.
No, I think it's a good idea. I mean, during budget, when you're looking through the whole thing that's happening to the city, it's hard to focus in on any given area. So I think it makes sense for public safety, for us to be able to look at public safety a couple times a year. Just find out how many new cars did we get, how many new officers got hired, how many firemen do we have, just kind of a synopsis. And I know it doesn't include wages for personnel.
Correct.
But it does give kind of a away from the rest of the budget process view of everything that's going on in public safety. So I think it's a good idea.
And the thing I liked about it was that you saw what they were looking at for the future, what they were saving dollars for, because they always had something that they were aiming for. So that's always nice to know.
All right.
Understood.
Well, what we could do, based on the feedback that I'm hearing, is we could, Chief, when you're ready, maybe come and give the report, you and Chief Skaggs, to the commission. And Carol, if we want to move forward and I don't know if we have to change a resolution or anything. I don't believe, Carol's done the research, and I don't think there's anything else required except a resolution.
There
Or an
might be an
change.
ordinance, but that's within their purview.
Okay.
There wasn't anything in the ballot question that would make this separate committee required.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 3.4, discuss fire hydrant markings.
Hello again.
Get to do that again, huh? All right. Welcome back.
I think that's me. So I'm sure as many of you have noticed, we've been flowing hydrants for a couple months now. That's going to continue through, probably up through the end of May and sometimes into June, depends on some of the situations we have. We're doing really good again this year. We've changed our methods over the years, so we're not causing as many disruptions in the water system as we used to, just by the way we open and close the hydrants. Sometimes it's hard to get firemen to slow down. So we've been working on that, doing a pretty good job this year, but there still are some issues that we're working with, and I've met with Public Works and water guys today again, and how we communicate and how we give them areas of interest to us and problems with hydrants, stuff like that. So we're always working to improve that system. One of the ways we're working to improve that system is how we color code the hydrants. So as you look around town, you've always seen the different colored tops on the hydrants. We've always gone around and painted those bonnets different colors, and the colors coordinate with flow numbers, so that just driving down the street, we know how much water we can get out of a hydrant. So if we go to a house fire in a certain area, as soon as we're driving up to the structure, we look around and see the hydrant, what color it is. We know how many lines we can pull, how many trucks we can hook up to that hydrant, and what to expect when we do. That's the whole purpose why we flow hydrants, so we can color code them. Recently, we've been seeing these colored rings, and this is a dual purpose ring. I'll talk about both sides. The colored side of the ring is meant to replace the painted tops. So when we flow hydrants, we collect all the data, we put it in spreadsheets, and once we get all those formulated, then we know what the hydrant flows and what color to paint it. So we go back out and evaluate if we have to change the color on the hydrant from orange to blue to red to green, so on and so forth, and then we go around and paint each hydrant the respective color that it needs that year. Over the years, things change, improved water mains. The water system's always changing. We put in the water towers a few years back. When they're doing construction, they open and close valves. So at any given time, different parts of town are subject to change in water pressure and flow. So we'd have to go back out again later that year and change colors on the bonnets, and it's just a vicious cycle. So what we came up with is painting the hydrants all one color, and this is going to be in the works throughout the rest of the year. We're going to paint them all yellow from top to bottom. And we're going to use the color-coded rings to designate the flow for that specific hydrant. So now instead of the bonnet being blue, it'll have a blue ring on it. And that way, anytime there's a change, we can simply change a ring instead of having to carry around paint on a $500,000 fire truck and burning diesel and all that good stuff just to change the color of the hydrant. Along with that, I'm working on a program, hopefully, to get out of the way we are painting our hydrants now. Because, like I said, each crew is going around in an expensive fire truck with cans of paint, trying not to get paint on their uniforms. In the fire truck, we're burning diesel, and we're just, excessive wear and tear. But we have to be in our trucks at all times, ready to respond. So one of my ideas, I'm going to try and, I've been talking to David Hunter. He has some great ideas and great resources. Be talking to the Department of Corrections, see if we can work with them to get a couple of work release people. We've got some used minivans we can possibly drive around in. I'm still working on this project so that we can paint hydrants without having to use our fire trucks. So some of the changes you're going to see with our hydrants around town.
Can you share with us what colors are going to be?
Yes, sir. And this is probably the thing we get the most questions about, is because for the last several years, to try to easily identify our hydrants out in the field, we've been painting the tops of the hydrants that are out of service gray. Black didn't work very good because it's hard to cover back up with yellow. So gray seemed to be the color of choice. So the gray hydrants are out of service. They will not flow water. Usually due to mechanical insufficiency, the stems are broke or frozen to where we can't turn and open them. They're just not able to be operated in order to provide water to a fire truck at a structure fire. Currently, we have a little over 40 of these hydrants in town. That sounds like a lot, but we have somewhere around 2,500 hydrants. That's a lot more than what we'd like to have. But again, we're always working with the waterworks guys, and they are always working hard for us, trying to do the best they can, trying to keep up. But some of these projects are pretty big. Their manpower limits them on a lot of what they can do, because you can't always just shut off an individual fire hydrant. Sometimes you have to shut off a main to an entire neighborhood, because that's the only way to shut the water off in that area. So it's a challenge for them, for sure. But we're working on some ideas on how to make things easier. But right now, if you see this black ring out of service, it means we cannot get water out of that hydrant. And we're working to correct all those best we can.
Chief, you maintain the records of the fire flows, and we do this annually. And I just wanted to mention this, as the commission knows, we're getting ready to replace some water lines. And so they'll either be picked up in the next year, or we'll specifically go check them. But Leona Mitchell is going to get, I believe, is it coming on the next meeting? Okay, great. And I know the loan was approved yesterday. So, and out of that loan, we'll get at least 3 other water lines fixed. So there's some improvements. right there. So what we want to see is blue and green hydrants all over town, and
Well, that would be
ways to
great.
go. So
That'd be great. And to touch on it, so if you do have an orange or even a red hydrant in your area, that's not the end of the world. It's going to be a little bit challenging for us, and it might limit us in our capabilities a little bit. But really, when we respond to a structure fire, each engine carries 750 gallons of water at a flow rate of about 200 to 250 gallons a minute, depending on the nozzles and the length of hose. That truck will last us a little while. The next one gets there. Now we have 1,500 gallons of water we can use without even tapping a hydrant. So that red hydrant flowing 500 gallons a minute can support a couple hose streams flowing at once, water on scene. And we know where weak areas. If we don't think we're going to have sufficient water supply, we'll pull a tanker in there and have thousands of gallons of water to support all that. So we know our areas. We know the hydrants in those areas. We know how to work around that. But yes, it would be great to have blue and green all over town, so.
Also, to add to what Gerald said, that we do have a lot of water lines being replaced, and they've changed corners on several of those water lines as far as our hydrants are concerned. I know your dispatch has them all geographically located and
Yes.
tells you what corner that hydrant is at when you're going to a structure fire.
They do. Yeah, and we have that on board of trucks now.
Are
too.
we hitting those hydrants when we do the flow checks to change those areas that are being changed in
We
our
flow.
system?
Yes, we flow every hydrant, and the technology is getting better, and it's talking to each other from department to department better all the time. The information we get, we give to engineering, and they find ways, because not everybody has the same platforms. So they find ways to give it to the other departments that utilize that information, dispatch being one of them. We also have iPads. It's called GeoSafe on our iPads. And so we can pull up a live map, and it shows where our trucks are, and it shows the hydrants in that area, and the color code, the flow rate that each one of those hydrants has. Again, talking to the water distribution guys this morning, we're setting them up right now with a user account with our live, daily updated by the second. Anytime we make an entry, it's web-based, so it's updated automatically. They're now going to have access to all of our hydrant flow information as we put them in the field. So now the red hydrants, the out-of-service hydrants, are going to show up on their user interface so that they see day by day, minute by minute, what we're doing with the hydrants, what they're flow testing at, things like that. So, yeah, we're doing the best we can with improving the communications between departments, but we do flow every single hydrant.
Well,
Check
I
every
know that,
hydrant
but I
every
was
year.
just saying that they replaced the line between, 10th and 16th on East Pine,
Yeah,
and all the fire hydrants are in a different location than they have been for the last 20 years.
yes, but we do geolocate them. We know
Because they
exactly where
actually
they're at.
moved sides of streets,
Right,
across the street on two of them. It was just kind of like, hold on here a second, but
right,
they moved them all.
yeah. Also, keep in mind, if the world comes to an end and all technology evaporates, we still, have 3 trucks, a ladder truck, a command, and a rescue truck coming from all different directions to any structure in town. So as we're approaching those, we don't just rely on the iPad. We don't just rely on the information on the radio given by dispatch. We're watching hydrants as they're going through neighborhoods, and we flow them every year. We know where they're at. We painted it, we flowed it, we've wrestled them and everything else. So, yeah, we know where the closest hydrants are, even without looking at our technology. So, our guys are always out there working with that kind of stuff.
So Chief, one last question. Over time, all the hydrants will be painted yellow with these color marking discs
sir.
on them?
Yeah.
And then that disc will be on the front street face or on all 3 of the?
So ideally, when they put a hydrant in, the 5-inch large opening should be facing the main street side or the intersection, depends on the layout of the street and intersection. We do still have a very few two-way hydrants out there. So instead of the large 5-inch and 2.5-inch, you'll just see 2.5-inch. We don't have very many of those left at all. So on those hydrants, you'll see these smaller rings on the 2-inch outlet that's on the main street where we're going to be coming in from. But all the rest of them will have the bigger rings on the 5-inch opening.
Okay. All right. All right,
Anything else?
thanks, Chief.
Welcome.
Item 3.5, discuss proposal for housing study for ERDA. I bet that's Lisa.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thanks for having me this evening. This is just a report from the Union Regional Development Alliance about a housing study that we plan to commission, and wanted to keep you guys advised of what our plans are, and also provide any opportunity for you guys to share any thoughts or comments or input you want to have to that process. There have been 2 other times in history that, well, yeah, probably history, that we have done a housing study. That was 2013 and 2015. Both of those times were very similar to what we're seeing today, with a very low inventory of housing on the market, and also growth in our population. And so honestly, those 2 studies are the 2 most requested documents out of our office. We have shared those documents with dozens of people locally, but also developers and builders and investors from all across the country, because they are such a comprehensive look at our market, because it just, we'll walk through a little bit of it, but the conclusions they come to on our housing market are based on the entire economic outlook of the community. And so it also provides all of that back data as a part of the study, which becomes helpful for a lot of different reasons. But so we have requested proposals from 2 different companies. We had an ERDA committee of the board review those proposals, and they selected RDG as the company that they would like to work with. And we are now in the process of further defining our goals for that study, which is reason for my presentation with you here tonight. And then we will go back to RDG with any tweaks we want to make to that, and have them give us a final proposal. Do I have a clicker up here? I do, don't I? Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay. Very high level things here. It may take as long as 7 months to complete the housing study that we are proposing, in addition to what we've done in the past, which is really just identify the demographics of our community, the economic makeup of our community, and the needs and desires of our residents that live here. We are also looking to take this study a little further into exploring some of those areas of housing where the market is not solving the issues for us. The private market is not coming in and investing in areas to upgrade or rehabilitate housing. And so that's why we chose RDG, is because their study will take a little different look on things than we've done in the past. So primary goals are data collection. So again, to understand the market, supply and demand. That's not only current supply and demand, but it also will identify future and forecasted supply and demand. They will also do a deeper dive in understanding the needs in some of our qualified census tracts. And so that was something we've never done before. And so in the past, our study was county-wide, and it was really just an aggregate review of the market for housing at the county level. So we want to do that, but in addition, we also want to take a look at some of those older neighborhoods where we've got some older housing stock that we know needs some extra attention in order to make sure it continues to be safe and adequate for our citizens here. In addition to the study that we want to do in those qualified census tracts, this firm, because they do this all over the country, can also advise us on some specific programs and even financing that might be available to help redevelop some areas, you know, and teach us some things that we don't already know about how we can improve the housing stock in our community. Something that's not listed also, but I know there's discussion about establishing a housing authority, and so I have broached that topic with them as well. Told them that we don't have one and that we are evaluating the pros and cons of a housing authority, and they definitely are willing to tell us, you know, what they would recommend or what they've seen in other communities, how those work best. So they can help advise us on that as well. So these studies, involve a lot of focus groups. The team will come to Enid, and we will have multiple focus groups that include employees, so a lot of input from our residents. They include employers, so we will hear from employers. That's where a lot of you understand more about the predicted growth possibly in employment here in the community from our employers. It will also include builders, realtors, bankers, developers, City of Enid, anybody that has any relationship to housing, which is just about all of us, right? And so they want to hear they don't want to do just a desktop review of the demographics and the price points and the number of bedrooms and the number of units and that kind of thing, but they really want to hear from the people in Enid what it is that we want to see in our housing, what we feel is lacking, and so they take that into consideration as well. Then is the data piece of it, the market analysis, and that is where they do capture the number of units we have, how many of those are rental, how many of those are owner-occupied, what size they are, how old they are, what their price point is, and then they combine that also with income levels, job projections, wage projections, and they try to marry the two together and show where we may have gaps in our housing market that does not align with the demographics of our population. And then from there, they will also use our comprehensive plan that the city has put together and evaluate and try to identify locations in town where additional housing development could occur. And then lastly, this is the piece that I think we're most excited about because it'll be something that we've never had done for us before, but this is where they can give us some advice on how to redevelop some of those neighborhoods in our qualified census tracts where they have the oldest housing stock, where they've got some of the smallest lots, where we know some of our private developers have evaluated those areas and not found a way that they could financially do redevelopment or improvement in that housing area. So this plan will do that assessment, tell us what they think our opportunities are there, and then also advise us on what programs and what financing options might be available to help fund some of those programs. And that is it. So I'm happy to take any questions, and then specifically if you have certain things that you would like to see this housing study inform you about, I'd like to take a note of that and also be able to take that back to the group doing this, and they can include it in their final proposal for us. So.
When's the study anticipated to start, and how long do they think it'll be?
It will start as soon as we have finalized our list of goals and objectives for the study. We'll provide that back to RDG. They will revise their proposal to us to match those goals, and they will execute a contract with them. So that process is probably a month or two to get that going. Then the study itself could take as many as 7 months to complete. So most of our next fiscal year.
Okay.
In terms of gathering data, you and I have talked about this before, but there are certain parts of town we really want to look at. And you've already talked about that tonight. Are they going to hold any kind of hearings where the public can come in and bring forward concerns, and so that they'll really get the data that we want them to have?
Yes, they're very intent on hearing from the people who live here and the people who are living in our housing. Even though we haven't worked with this group before, that seems to be pretty standard with these groups as they do these types of studies. And the previous group that did our housing studies was very good about that as well. But we'll certainly make sure that they know that's a priority for us, that they do that. So yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is the 35,000, is that coming, are you asking us for that, or is that ERDA's money?
Nope, I'm just letting you know what we plan to do. I'm not asking you for anything. How about that?
That is Remarkable.
This is your chance to influence what we plan to do, but no.
That's at the next meeting.
We've been working with a couple of companies over in another town that I'm familiar with, and I'm sure you know through Gerald. So it's exciting to see that there are opportunities on the horizon, and we have, in the old days, it seemed like we did a study every other week, and they were horribly expensive, and this is very reasonable, and it's timely, so I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
Well, and you know, I think all of us probably know what the report's going to say in a sense, but we need to have a third-party unbiased person come in and quantify that and qualify that for us, so that we can share that with other groups, other developers and bankers. And the last time we did that, it really did help inform those private entities who are trying to make investment decisions about Enid. And it wasn't just, you know, Lisa's opinion anymore. Now we have a document, so it's helpful for that.
Well, I want to add to the fact that Commissioner Norwood's been looking at the housing issue in his ward for many years now. Goes many years, maybe a decade or even better. Okay. And I got with him and spoke about my area, which wraps around his area that needs redevelopment of housing and everything else. And we're kind of a step ahead on some of the issues pertaining to our wards. And we've been addressing them, spearheading, addressing them together with Gerald and everything else. And we city lots, proposed lots.
Yeah.
And I actually got a contractor coming in and doing some of the lots in Commissioner, and I'm working on getting another couple of contractors in to work on some of these city lots. So if they would come and address us, we kind of have the in our wards that where what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And where it needs to be done.
Yeah, and it's very helpful.
We own as the city, that Commissioner Norwood and I have put in many hours of
Yes, and
checking
I do
out, so.
recognize it's been a priority for both of you and many of us for some time, and there's a number of people across the community trying to solve this problem. So I think it's a nice time to bring in some assistance for this, and all of these efforts will dovetail nicely into this report so we can make sure everybody is working together and not duplicating effort and getting the best, you know, for our investment, so.
Okay.
I think we ought to commend the ERDA. They're doing a good job. They've
They
got
are.
the focus on
They are
this,
definitely doing a
and
great
Lisa's
job.
leading the helm on that, so.
Yep.
Thank you,
Well,
Lisa.
this is not the only chance you get to give any input. You can call me anytime and let me know if you think of something that we need to include, so, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 3.6, discuss adoption of the 2018 Oklahoma Building Codes. That's probably Scott.
All right, Mayor and Commissioners, we've talked about the building codes before, I believe at least once, maybe two times before. So back in September, the state of Oklahoma made some changes and changed all of the code books that we use to do building inspections and things of that nature. And so we have been diligently reworking our ordinances to match what the state is going to require of us. So there isn't much wiggle room for us to do much different from what the state has. And but we do have to change our ordinances to reflect all of those changes. And we decided to take an opportunity to go through our ordinances very closely and make sure there weren't any other changes that we needed to make other than just reflecting which book we're using. And I need to say that that Carol has put in hours and hours and hours. You'll see on tonight's agenda 6.1 through 6.5, just the mayor reading through the description is a mouthful, and each one of those ordinances, you know, Carol has painstakingly gone through, looked at. We've talked about it with the code department. We've had a lot of help from Sierra Krakowski and code, reviewing that, talking about it again with Carol, making sure that we're making just the right recommended changes. And then we've met with the Construction Board of Appeals. and we went through each one of those ordinances with the Construction Board of Appeals, and they had a chance to give input. For your information, the Construction Board of Appeals is made up of tradesmen that are electricians, mechanical guys, an engineer. You know, there's a lot of different requirements to be on that board. And, you know, they went through and made a few suggestions further that we needed to make. And they recommended that we bring the changes that you see tonight in 6.1 through 6.5 to you tonight. And so that's what we've done. It's been a lot of work that Carol has done. There are really just some minor ordinance changes outside of what the state requirement is, telling us which electrical manual to use, which residential code. They might be things like in our ordinance, we actually had it that you needed to have your city license number on the side of your pickup. Well, all the contractors, they only put their state license on this. They work in multiple cities. They don't want to have, you know, 16 cities license on the side of their truck. And so that was an easy change. You know, there's a lot of little examples like that. One of them was just clarifying that our code department doesn't inspect boilers. That's actually done by the state of Oklahoma. And so we wanted to make sure that was clear, that there weren't really any changes, but we just wanted to clarify that a little further in our ordinance. There are some violation fees that we have that we wanted to match other violation fees in our ordinance. And so all we did on that is take out like a middle fee. There's like a first violation fee, and then here's if you keep doing a violation, it goes from 100 to 500. We did that simply to match all of the other fees that are in there, and fully realizing that if we want to be more lenient, a lot of times if we did give someone a larger fine, you know, our municipal judges are usually kind and would like to make adjustments if they see fit. The only other thing really in there of consequence is in our fire code, our fire marshal, Ken Helms, wants to utilize technology so that the fire department knows when there's been inspections on hoods and on fire suppression systems. They want to have better records of that and to be able to keep track of those inspections and when they come up a little better. And so there is technology out there where the people that come in and do these types of inspection, when they report those, they can also report them on an online tool that the fire department will have access to. And so we made that recommendation based on Ken Helms and the Construction Board of Appeals. And so that's what we're bringing forth to you tonight in 6.1 through 6.5. I think that wraps it up. Did I miss anything, Carol?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
Carol, I take it you went through with a fine tooth comb?
Oh,
As much as I could, I'm not an electrician.
all right. All right, thanks, Scott. With that said, that ends the items that we had for the study session, so we'll break here and meet back here at 6:30. Thank you.